Daniel is the internet's favorite printer.
History, we see tomorrow. Karma is karma. I say what I say, I hear underwater. Till I see y'all fall off, then I bring y'all up on note. I'm back up on my client winners, 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 divine winners, client winners, client winner, client winners. I'm with you, ride with you, master teacher, create master, client winners. You respect to the elder, client winners. Hi.
We have to live by my heart. We have to live by my heart. I have not done wrong. I have not robbed. I have not stolen. I have not framed people. I have not told lies. I have not stolen food. I was not stolen. I have not fornicated with the fornicator. I have not caused anyone to weep. I have not dissembled. I have not transgressed. I have not discussed secrets. I have brought no lawsuit. I have not wronged population. I have not struck kill. I have not transgressed the law. I have not been hunted. Except when I'm talking about Uncle Tom. I have not been I have not cursed. I have not been violent. I have not confounded truth. I have not been impatient. I have not cursed the God. What up, though? What up, though? What up, though? I got to tell you, people, this is it. This is it. Ow! The genius. The genius Yoshimot made that introduction. Yoshi, you out there. Oh, wow. The genius is here. I'm going to tell you something. This man, Yoshimot, he is so great. Then we got Joan Coramante. Joan is a great, she's part of my Patreon. You know what Joan did? What Joan did is that Joan made me understand that CAGE, culturally acquired immune deficiency syndrome, was missing a word. And that word Joan taught me was identity. Black people, when they catch CAGE, they lose their identity. Go travel abroad. This woman is bad. You know what she did? I had a lot of trauma from growing up. My mother never told me she loved me. My grandmother neither. I didn't understand that until I read Go Travel Abroad's book. Thank God for this woman because, see, God sent her here by Cat. They sent her here to help Black men and women get over the trauma that comes from growing up in the Black community. Wendy, she deals in a sense with help. She's going to help our people to become more health conscious, help our people to get more healthy. And this is important, baby. We need this information, you see. And it's so wonderful to meet people like these. And I'm glad you joined me today on this platform. You know, and the thing is, this is that what we're going to do is today I'm going to talk about Aboriginal history. I'm going to write a book. And but I'm not going to, I've already published about 3 books this year, so I'm not going to publish another one until January. And then this book is going to be on this subject, but it's going to have a beautiful cover, and this cover was done by the genius Yoshimad. And you guys are going to be very happy to see this important book when it comes out. Today they're having the funeral of David and Motep, and David was a great friend. David was a great historian. David told us so much about our history. And I'd like everybody to maybe take a minute, 30 seconds or a minute to say Asheo and to thank God for his purpose. Please take a minute of silence. Thank you. Thank you guys, because see, I know that David can feel this, he can hear it, because see, I'm going to tell you a metaphysical secret. One of the most important things to understand is that whenever you think about someone who's died, who you really loved, who you cared about, that person will come to you in spirit and will come and they will be around you, and they hear everything you say to them. They know everything that you know. In fact, that's one of the reasons why many of us are sometimes possessed by the ancestors, because see, just as Dr. James Small, Kaba, just as they say, we are our ancestors. We are our ancestors, you see. And because we are our ancestors, we have to be aware of this. Today, I want to do this presentation today because it's Indigenous American Day. But see, so sadly, so many people don't know who the real Aboriginals or the indigenous people of America were. And the reason they don't know this is because Europeans, that white man has been going through a steady process of trying to destroy our history. He's been going about trying to destroy our history because he doesn't want people to know how important, in a sense, we were in terms of creating, in a sense, this culture. How you doing up? Some chicken hamstar. How you doing? But the thing is this, is that we must know this history. And that's why I'm here. As you know, I could be doing something else, but I come on these streams to try to talk to you about our history, to try to tell you our real history, And I want you guys, in a sense, if you have suggestions on topics, please send me an email. My email is omek982000@yahoo.com. Send me a message and I'll try to see if I can make a program of your interest. This program, as many of my other programs, they come from people who have joined my Patreon. My Patreon, as I told you before about Joe and others, Yoshimot, all these people, in a sense, they give me ideas. And these ideas become, in a sense, reality. And the reason they become reality is because, I don't know everything. I don't know what interests everyone. But I try to make sure that I create content, and I stream it here on my channel, to reflect what the family is interested in knowing. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here for you. I love you. I know you love me. And the point is this, is that it's all about that. And see, I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful that in 1968, I met a wonderful, a beautiful girl. And that was my wife. Her name was Susan Diane Thomas. And when I met this person, when I looked into her eyes, I didn't know the power, because she was kind of hypnotic, you see. She had beautiful long legs. Anyway, but this woman, in a sense, who later became my wife, she stood behind me for 52 years as my friend. And for 50 years, we were married. And in 2020, she died. But see, what she taught me was how to love, how to love. And see, I know a lot of you think that's phony, and y'all say, what is this old man talking about? But see, love is very important. It's not important in every relationship at first because see, most Black relationships fail today because the fact is that the people, they fail to respect each other. And because they fail to respect each other, then they just they just grow apart. Because see, it's very important to understand that love between some men and some women, that love in a sense, it has no foundation in a sense because see, love is a state of mind. And that people are in love as long as they, in a sense, as long as they think they're in love. But see, that was the beauty of my wife, Diane. Is that Diane, my wonderful one, she taught me in a sense is that love was more than that. Love was being able, in a sense, to share yourself with other people. Love was, in a sense, being able to share yourself with your family. Before my wife died, she said, Clyde, she had all of us together. She wasn't on a deathbed or nothing like that. But she does one day, we were having an affair. She said, Clyde, kids, I want y'all, every time y'all get on the telephone, every time you talk to each other, before you leave, I want you to say, I love you. She said this about a year or so before she died. But the point is this is that I try to remember that. I try to maximize that. But the beauty of it is that she loved the family. She loved being Black. She loved, in a sense, being Indian. The only thing she hated was the fact that she couldn't speak whatever language our ancestors spoke when they were over here and enslaved on the plantations during the Holocaust. Other than that, Diane was always happy. But the point is this is that she said, love your people, love yourself. And that's what this is all about. That's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying, in a sense, to set a standard. I'm trying to show you love, and I'm trying to give you knowledge so that you can understand who and what you are. First of all, it's very important to remember is that, yes, number one, we are an African people, but our entire history is not African because we were already here when African slaves came here. Number two, we are very creative people. And the best example of that creativity is the genius, Yoshimad, you see. But the most important thing to remember is that we have to love and care about each other. That doesn't mean, in a sense, is that we have to kiss each other's ass and all that type of stuff. But what it means is that we have to share how we feel. We have to, in a sense, let each other know, you see. Let each other know how we care about each other. I love you. I thank you for coming. And let's get into this presentation. Okay, history and culture of the Black Aboriginals of the United States. That's going to be the title of my book that I'm going to have coming out in January. FBA is not a group. FBA is not an organization. FBA is a lineage. A lineage is lineal descent from an ancestor, ancestry or pedigree. As a result, we are descendants of the African and Aboriginal Blacks who built the United States. Yes, we're descendants of Africans, but the vast majority of the people who were here were our Aboriginals, our Black history, our Black Indian ancestors who made our Black history. See, many people, they don't understand, in a sense. They can't see this because they've never even recognized. One of my patrons, they said, yeah, Dr. Winters, we should have known the hijack. And he said we should have known the hijack because he said that the 5 civilized tribes supposedly had taught Europeans about food and how to cook. And he said, Dr. Winters, I said, what? He said, look at this. Name one Native American restaurant. Da, da, da. There aren't any. There aren't any Native American restaurants because they were nomadic people. The original 5 civilized tribes were Black people, like you, like me. If you want to find out the history of Blacks in America, you got to get my books, Atlantis and Mexico. African empires in ancient America. Of course, the world history of the black race. The world history of the black race, I tell you, the history of every black civilization on the American continent, the Asian continent, and the African continent, even the islands out in the Pacific. Check out my book, America from Prehistory to 1877. That will provide you with a detailed history of the Aboriginal and Black Europeans that made this country. And we're not just Africans. In that book, it tells you about the Black tribes and the interaction between the Black tribes and our sub-Saharan African ancestors. You see, you can join Patreon to see the slides. You can see me on Twitter at Dr. Clyde Winters 8. I'll admit, I should spend more time on Twitter, but I can't never get used to it because I'm always doing research, so I have little time to really say too much. You can come to YouTube and see my videos. That's where you're at now. You're on my YouTube channel. Come back, visit it, subscribe, get notifications of upcoming, our live broadcast. Go and check out my old videos there on every aspect of Black history, everything. You can order my books on Amazon.com. This is the Swarthy Nerd. They did a series of podcasts, and they're on our YouTube, and they call their site the Swarthy Nerd Podcast. And they have the latest podcast. What they do is that what happened is that when I was originally on their show, a lot of the viewers of the video had questions about Black history, ancient history, growing up in the 1960s, and I answer all these questions on the Swarthy Nerd Podcast. They even asked about my anime likes. I'm not gonna. I have to admit, I do like anime. I do like anime. One of my favorites is Black Clover, and also I love, in a sense, the Demon Slayer. Yes, I am a nerd. If looking at anime is nerdy, so go to the Swarthy Nerd Podcast. Check out this latest video. You're going to have a lot of questions that you have about Black history are answered on that program. Check it out. History and culture of the Black Aboriginals of the United States. My research goals provide an accurate and true account of the culture and history of Aboriginal foundational Black Americans, or freemen. Jack D. Forbes, he wrote a very interesting book. Jack D. Forbes and Africans and Native Americans gives us account of the reality that there were already Blacks in America when Columbus sailed to America. But he makes it appear that the Africans had established colonies in the Americas, but he made it clear that these Africans lived in areas dominated by red men or Mongoloid Indians. And this was false, you see. But if you read this book about Africans and Native Americans, it's not going to really tell you any of our real history. It's not going to tell you the real history of the Aboriginal Black people, because he makes it appear as though the Black man was an alien in his own country. No, this was a Black continent. It was true that there were many African colonies in the Americas when Columbus made his way to America, but he failed to acknowledge the fact that there were Aboriginal tribes described as Black by the European explorers who identified the Americans, who had lived on these continents and who had also seen the original Blacks. Yes. He had seen these original Blacks. And because he had seen these original Blacks, these people, these explorers, then in a sense, what Jack D. Forbes is talking about is okay, but he doesn't really go into the essence of who these people were. There's another book called Black Indians. And Black Indians is a little bit better, you see. But my research goal is to make her understand that although there have been several earlier books which attempted to describe the history of the Black Indians, these books fail to accurately tell the history of Aboriginal FBA, foundational Black Americans, because they argue that Black Indians are descendants of enslaved sub-Saharan Africans and Mongoloid Indians, and that's wrong. For example, William Lorraine Katz, in his book, Black Indians, noted that, and I quote, "I have defined Black Indians as people who have a dual ancestry, or Black people who have lived for some time with Native Americans. When slaves escaped to the woods and joined or began communities, They're called by the Spanish term maroons. So he wanted to say that all these black Indians were maroons. No, 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 no. They were Aboriginal people, the indigenous people, the Americans. But again, to follow that white idea, to follow in a sense that whole idea, because you have to understand is that it is threatening. It is very threatening to Europeans in America, these white settlers. It's very threatening for them to acknowledge the great history of Aboriginal blacks. They can't acknowledge that, because if they acknowledge that, they have to show, in a sense, the great contributions we made to the rise of civilization on this continent. And yes, Aboriginal black people have a great history on this continent that I'm going to outline in my book, but we're going to just do a little discussion of it here. Although this is the opinion of Katz, he was wrong. In reality, the copper-colored Americans were Aboriginal Americans who, in phenotype and some of the languages they spoke, were Negroes or black people who had been in the Americas for 130,000 years. In reality, the black Indians were the original Americans who were made the first chattel slaves by European and American farmers and on their plantations. Thusly, the Aboriginal FBA did not meet originally as maroons. They met as enslaved black people on tobacco, sugar, and later cotton plantations up to the end of the Civil War. Yes, up to the end of the Civil War. You got to remember, in a sense, is that anytime Europeans wanted some new slaves to work on their plantations, they didn't go to Africa, because see, after 1800, it was against the law to bring Africans in. Yeah, they still snuck some Africans in as slaves, but the vast majority of slaves that they made after, in a sense, 1800, they would just go attack a black Indian village and then put them on the plantation, have them, grow some rice, grow some corn, and things like that. This weekend, we are celebrating Indigenous People Day, but this celebration has no reality in history, because it does not recognize the true Indigenous Americans who are black, the copper-colored Aboriginal people of the United States. Sadly, Aboriginal FBA, even if they live on reservations, have lost the raw memories, yes, the raw memories, the shiny memories of their culture and history, because those Aboriginal FBA who avoided slavery tried to assimilate into Euro-American society by adopting Christianity. Yes, they love the great Jesus, the man on the cross. These blacks have lost knowledge of their history and tried to recapture their history by imitating Native Americans instead of researching their history. As a result, they came to feel as stepchildren in the land they made, because they wanted to imitate and mimic a nomadic tradition that had nothing to do with the history and culture of copper-colored Aboriginal FBA, who were sedentary farmers who lived in stone and wooden houses, not teepees. It's very important to understand is that the red man was a nomad. The copper-colored man was sedentary. He stayed in one place. He built his own civilization. He made houses out of stone. He made houses out of wood. He didn't carry his house behind him, i.e. the teepee. He built a house and stayed in one place. The Paleo-Americans were phenotypically African, Melanesian, or Australian. Dr. Nida Guidan says that man was in Brazil 100,000 years ago, and that these humans came from Africa. Yes. A lot of people say, Dr. Winter, stop it. Saying that the black people or Aboriginal people came from Africa, because they couldn't have came from Africa. How do you know? This is how we know. An archaeologist, an anthropologist, when they study ancient cultures, they look at the tools that they use, and they look at, in a sense, at the artifacts that they made, usually pottery, or in the case of people in very ancient times, the batteries, the baskets and things like that. And so we find, in a sense, that when we look at the pottery, when we look at the artifacts associated with these cultures, dating back 100,000, 20,000, 50,000 years ago, we find that the earliest evidence, I repeat, the earliest evidence of these tools that the ancient Americans used, the earliest evidence in terms of chronology have been found in Africa, and then they appear in America. Because the earliest tools and artifacts were found in Africa, and then later they're found in America, that shows that there had to have been a migration of African people from Africa to the Americas. Paleo-Americans are identified as Negro. Yeah, if you read on the Paleo-Americans, they were Negroes. Naia, Apiuna, Luzia, even Kennewick, man. You know, they made a new reconstruction of Kennewick, man. They give him a beard and make him look like some European. That's a lie. Our Paleo-American ancestors were black, like you, black like me, black like us. As a result, when Columbus came to the Americas, he called the people of the New World Indians. And he called them Indians because the Caribbean Indians were black like the people of South India. In other words, when they came and they saw these black people, these Caribbean people, you know, they said, damn, hey, this is quite interesting. And it's quite interesting because the fact is that they're black. So since they're black and the people in South India are black, then we made it to India. But in reality, they knew they had maps from the Moors and they knew that this wasn't India, but they was just hoping they made it. But a very interesting thing is that when you look at these Carib Indians, look at their scarves. These scarves are very interesting. The way they covered their head, you know, even the men and the women, is very, very interesting. And the whole idea too is when you look at the fact that many of them had these kind of red scarves tied around their head. It was interesting. We talk about the fact that a lot of the Black Indians used to like the color red as an head covering in the American Maroons. I was in the American Maroons movie made by Tariq Nasheed, and there we talk about this whole experience, this whole idea of red as a significant color for in a sense, the Black Aboriginal people. Aboriginal Americans. We call the Black Indians Aboriginals because they have been here for 100,000 years. The first culture in North America was the Solutrean culture, which came from Africa to America at least 20,000 years ago. The Solutrean culture, I'm talking about not the entire Americas, I'm talking about, you know, North America. The earliest culture in North America was the Solutrean culture, and it goes back 20,000 years, but it goes back to 30,000 years in Southern Africa. But it's only 20,000. By 20,000 years, they had migrated to North America. When Europeans settled North America, they met the Black Indians, which they called the 5 civilized tribes. These Black people were sedentary farmers who lived in wooden houses, usually built on mounds. Don't get it twisted. Black Indians did not live in teepees. The Mongoloid Indians came from Mexico. These people were nomads. They followed the herds of buffalo to the Midwest, South, and Eastern shores. Black Indians adopted these hunter-gatherer Native Americans. Beginning with Benjamin Franklin, Europeans gave the Mongoloid Indians our Indian heritage. Yes. They've said Mongoloid Indians all over the United States, red men, and they told them, oh, you pretend to be this Indian group, you pretend that Indian group. You know, and they're going around pretending that they were Black Indians. No. You're a nomad. You lived in a teepee. You carried your teepee around when you moved. Black Indians, the original 5 civilized tribe, lived in wooden houses. You know, Benjamin Franklin, you know, he felt in the sense that there should be unity between the black, not the black, but the red man and the European. And he felt that the red man was the most appropriate in a sense population to mix with. They could help America in a sense remain white, because he felt that if you made it with a red woman, then therefore in a sense over time you could have a quicker in a sense change of the red of your descendants or your children that were produced by the red woman. They would in a sense change sooner into the so-called European type than marrying the Black Indians. Okay, this is what Benjamin Franklin wrote in 1751. It's called Observations Concerning the Increase of Mankind, Peopling of Countries, etc. I quote, The number of purely white people in the world is proportionately very small. All Africa is black or tawny. Asia, chiefly tawny. America, exclusive of the newcomers, wholly so. And in America and in Europe, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, and Swedes are generally what we call a swarthy complexion, as are the Germans also. The Saxons only accepted, who with the English make the principal body of white people on the face of the earth. I could wish their numbers were increased. And while we are, as I may call it, scouring our planet by clearing America of woods, and so making this side of the globe reflect a brighter light to the eyes of inhabitants in Mars or Venus, why should we, in the sight of superior beings, darken its people? Did you hear that? Did you hear that? But let's look at that first paragraph. He says, the number of purely white people in the world is proportionally very small. All Africa is black or tawny. Asia, chiefly tawny. America, exclusive of the newcomers, wholly so. Get it? In other words, the original Americans were black. But as they began to meet these Mongoloid people, in a sense, they said, hey, we got to be like the red man, because he felt, in a sense, is that if he could make a union between the red man and the white man, then he could keep America white. I mean, he was the first. Instead of wearing, in a sense, instead of wearing this Indian headdress, he should really have a mega hat, because in reality, he was one of the first megas. That's one of Trump's greatest ancestors. We're not just Africans, the Black Native Americans, by Dr. Clyde Winters. We're not just Africans, the title of my new book, because Afro-Americans are more than descendants of the sub-Saharan Africans. This book is richly illustrated with colorful pictures of the Black Native Americans. It provides the history of Black Native Americans from 12,000 BC up to the present. Learn about the various Black Native American tribes and their culture, and how the Native American slave trade in New England and the Southeast led to the extermination and decline of Black Native Americans in the United States. Yes, yes, yes. When you hear people like Remio, Susani, and Dane Calloway, they're always talking about in the sense that, the Black Indians were, no, the Black Indians were the first chattel slaves. Stop it, stop it, stop it. But see, these people are lying to you. And they're lying to you because, in a sense, that they almost seem to be agents of the European. And I'm saying that they, in a sense, are being agents of the European because they're trying to teach people division. They want everybody to go back to being Cherokee, Choctaw, whatever. And that's what got us in the situation we're in today. Because the fact is that we made up so many different nations, quote unquote, that in a sense we felt it was good to sell each other to the white man. And by selling our people to the white man, that's what led to America being dominated by Europeans today. Get my book, We Are Not Just Africans, to learn more. Alphonse de Quatreges claimed that the Black tribes of Latin America included the Chocos, the Manabis, the Yayuras, the Guarani, the Charus, the Yamasi, and the Tizidao, Chantao, in addition to numerous ethnic groups along the Orinoco River in Venezuela and the Isthmus of Darien. Yes, 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 yes. They teach you every day that there were no Black tribes, but they knew it was Black tribes here. But that's just to fool you. The major Native American confederations were made up of Black and Mongoloid Native Americans. These confederations include the Iroquois, the Muskogean, and Algonquin. Because they were blood brothers, Black and Mongoloid Native Americans often shared the same names for their tribes. But we only thought we were blood brothers because every time our Mongoloid brothers had the opportunity, they would sell us out. I'm sorry to say. They have not been good brothers. They have not been good blood brothers. They always sell us out, especially when it comes to getting the casino. All the Savages from Baron Lahab Fatan. In this book, The New Voyages to North America, edited by Reuben Gold Thawis. And now, if you get this slide, you can see where you can find the original book. This is what he said. I quote, all the savages are of a sanguine constitution, inclining to an olive color. And generally speaking, they have good faces and proper persons. 'Tis a great rarity to find any among them that are lame, hunchback, one-eyed, blind, or dumb. Their eyes are large and black, as well as their hair. Their teeth are white like ivory, and the breath that springs from their mouth and expiration is as pure as the air that they suck in inspiration. Notwithstanding, they eat no bread, which shows that we are mistaken in Europe in fancying that the eating of meat without bread makes one's breath stink. Think about that. This is what Lahojan said about us. He described the black Native Americans, the copper-colored people. Look. He didn't say they were red men. And he even said that their breath was so sweet. What? Well, they were talking about people, back then, because when I wake up in the morning, my breath don't smell so good. That's another story. The European, in a sense, he's always been tricky. Here's from an old book written back in the day. It says the American or Indian race found only in America is of a deep copper color. Yes. Straight black hair, high cheekbones, eyes, black and sunken large faces, and robust bodies. This race comprises all the American Indians except the Esquimaux, who belong to the Asiatic race. See, they already knew it was a difference. They called, in a sense, the red men, they called them the Esquimaux. See? But they said the real American was a black person, you see? Look at this. Look at this Indian over there. Take a look there. Take a minute to observe. Yeah, he got that straight hair and he got feathers. Damn, that's the American, huh? Oh, what is the fourth race? The African Negro race. They have a jet black skin, low narrow forehead, black woolly hair, thick lips, and long heels. Damn, isn't it interesting? That here we have the American at the top and the African and Negro at the bottom. Only damn difference between the damn American and the damn Negroes, the fact they gave the damn Americans some feathers. See how the European will lie to you? He knew. But see, this is what Europeans constantly do. This is what the white supremacists do. They will make you see things. And they will try to make you, not in a sense, judge what you see as being real. They'll give you the definition of whatever they want to tell you. The only difference between these two pictures, between these two men, is one got a feather and the other one don't have a feather. But they can make you believe that there's a difference between the American. The American. See what he said? He said the American. That's you, family. That's me, family. That's us. Aboriginal Foundation of Black Americans. You can see various pictures of us, you see? And these are some of the pictures. And the only evidence we have two sources of evidence for the Aboriginal Foundation of Black Americans. They come from some of the pictures that they painted of the earliest Indians that they met. And also, in a sense, it comes from some of the writings. And that's what we're going to do here to really get an understanding of the Aboriginal culture. I'm going back to some of those books that were written by some of these earliest Europeans who met the various Black Indians, you see. There's all type of Black Indian tribes. Just take a minute to ponder this slide, please. As you can see, it wasn't just one Indian group, wasn't just one group of Black people, it was many different Black people. Oglethorpe returned to England in June 1734 with goodwill ambassadors in the persons of Yamakra chief Tomochichi and Sanaki, his wife, their nephew Tunahoe. Look over there. Look at that picture. These are Yamakra Indians. As you can see, they're copper colored. They're not red men. As the principal mediator between the native population and the New England settlers during the first years of Georgia's settlement, Tomochichi left contributed much to the establishment of peaceful relations between the two groups and to the ultimate success of Georgia. His nephew, Tuananoe, is seated on the right in his engraving, circa 1734. 35 by John Faber Jr., Tomochichi, and 6 other Lower Creek tribesmen. So these are some of the Creeks. The Creeks were a very interesting group, and the Creeks were very interesting because the Europeans, in a sense, they had a lot of early contact with them, and but their relationship was very complicated because often they would side with the Creeks, but then they made many Creeks were slaves too. And many Creek slaves were sold to the Caribbean. But again, I don't know, foundational Aboriginal foundational Black Americans were a strange group in the sense is that it's amazing to me that foundational Black American Aboriginals, they never in a sense could recognize race. What I mean is they never recognized race is that even though it was white people making them chattel slaves, and in fact would pay them money to enslave other Black people, it seems as though that our Aboriginal foundational Black American ancestors never really, in a sense, could focus on seeing, the white man as, in a sense, an enemy across the race. They always, and even today, we always look at various peoples as individuals. And because of the fact that we judge people as individuals, we rarely ever, in a sense, spend our time attacking an entire group of people. But the only reason today that we can attack an entire group of people is that these people are in a sense, white supremacists. And so we don't like the white supremacists. It's not that, in a sense, foundational Black Americans are against all Europeans or all settlers. It's just that we don't like white supremacists who don't like us. Some of the Black Native American tribes were the Blackfeet, the Cree, Choctaw, Costanoan, Kashida, Lenape, Mandan, Manikan, Mandinka, Nanako, Narragansett, Nudawesi, Neantes, Ahani, Padawomek, Pequot, Ramapo, Seneca, Seminoles, Sikalan, Tomakara, Zoyaho, Tuscarora, Wampanoag, Opokanoket, Washita, Yamasi, Yamakro, and Yuchi. The Black Native Americans cultivated the 3 sisters, maize, beans, and squash. The basic organizing principle for Black Native Americans was the tribe. The Black Native American tribes would then organize themselves into confederations to meet threats from enemy Indian tribes and Europeans. These confederations were made up of Black and Mongoloid Americans. But the only problem is that many of the earliest confederations, like the Iroquois, the Algonquin, what happened in a sense is that sometimes the white people wouldn't really acknowledge over time the Black membership, and they would try to push them out and say that they were free colored people. For example, the Iroquois were actually not a people, but a confederation of 8 Native American nations: the Cayugas, the Manikan, the Mohawk, the Nanticoke, the Seneca, the Oneida, the Onondaga, and the Tuscarora. In terms of power, they were perhaps the most formidable Native American group in North America and the most represented in the imaginative works of the European settlers, controlling at their zenith a territory covering from Massachusetts to Ohio and Quebec and Ontario to Kentucky. So as you can see, these people, but see what makes it very interesting is that later, sure, like the Last of the Mohicans and all that type of stuff, they make these movies, but in these movies, in a sense, they substitute the Aboriginal foundational Black Americans. They substitute, in a sense, the red man, or they begin, in a sense, to have Mongoloid people play these roles. The Mongoloid people were not in that great of numbers back then. The numbers, as I told you before, they were nomadic people. Many people don't understand when we think about the buffalo. When you think about the buffalo, you think about these giant herds of buffalo that was out in the southwest, in the west. But let me tell you something. That there were buffalo even in Virginia. Yes, there were buffaloes in the state of Virginia and Georgia. And I think it was that these Mongoloid Indians, these red men that came from Mexico, I really believe that how they came in contact with the Aboriginal Foundation of Black Americans was what they followed the buffalo from the Southwest to Virginia, Georgia, and etc. Black Native Americans were spread from the East Coast of California on up into Canada. Much of what is now Georgia was a stronghold of the Black Native Americans. These Blacks lived predominantly from the Smoky Mountains in North Carolina, southward as far as St. Augustine, Florida. The vast majority of Black Native Americans lived in California or along the eastern seaboard of North America. They belonged to many confederations, including Muscogan, the Algonquin. Some of their tribal names include the Choctaw, Tuscarado, Secolan, Patawomac, Tamacla, Nenacok, Cachita, Seminoles, Yamasi, etc. You see, and so it's very important to understand this is that, when now you hear a lot of, in a sense, so-called, mestizos. A lot of mestizos, they claim in a sense that California, New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, it was occupied in a sense by mestizos. That's a damn lie. It was occupied. These states were occupied by Black Native American Indians. You see. Then later, the Apache, the Navajo, these people migrated into the Southwest. But the Southwest, when the Spanish traveled out there, they found Black tribes. And we know when you look at the earliest pictures of the Aboriginals and from California all the way up to Washington State, they were Black Indians, not Mongoloid Indians. But today, you wouldn't believe in a sense that Black people were over there, that they were Black Indians. I remember when my niece, her family grew up in Seattle, and she told her parents that she saw a ghost in the basement that was a Black Indian, and they said, "You're just dreaming." But see, she was right. She probably did see a Black Indian ghost because the Indians all the way up to Washington State were Black. See, here's an original painting of a Black Mohawk Indian. And look at this Mohawk Indian. He's wearing Muslim garb. Look how he's wearing, in a sense, the cloak. He's wearing, in a sense, the toga. You see? Yes. That's how we know that there were many Indians who were Moorish. Here we see some of the other. Here we see another. We see a red Indian and with her children. Here we see a picture of the California Indians. As you can see on the left-hand side, you can see some of the California Indians and their very beautiful hairstyles. And then we also see the Indians that lived in San Francisco. Often they try to cover up. Often they try to put the. They usually try to put some sort of covering around the private parts of these California Indians from San Francisco. But this is the original picture. Just ignore that and explain to your kids. People used to like to paint people in their natural, their naturalness. The Ohlone people, also known as the Costanoan, are Native American people of the central and northern California coast. When Spanish explorers and missionaries arrived in the late 18th century, the Ohlone inhabited the area along the coast from San Francisco Bay through Monterey Bay to the lower Salinas Valley. At that time, they spoke a variety of languages. The Ohlone languages belong to the Costonian subfamily of the Utland languages family, which itself belongs to the proposed Penutilan language phylum. The term Ohlone has been used in place of Costanoan since the 1970s by some descendant groups and by most ethnographic historians. Now look, here's the Ohlones. Do any of them look Mongoloid to you? Not a one. This is how the California Indians looked. But today, you see these red Indians saying, "Oh, I'm an Ohlone. I'm a descendant." No, you're not a descendant. You're not a descendant of the original people who lived in California, New Mexico, Colorado, They didn't look like you. You're a liar. But this is what they did. What they did is that after the Dawes Commission and a little bit before, in 1860s, after the Civil War, 1870s, they sent these red Indians all to different parts of the country, the Midwest. They sent them to California, and they said, "You pretend you this, you pretend you're in this group," and then they go here, "You pretend you're in this black group, and you pretend you're in that black group." And after a while, in a sense, because of the fact that they hid many of the pictures of the original California Indians from us, then we started believing that those Indians in California today are the Indians that always been there. No, 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 no. There were no Chicanos, no mestizos. The predominant people who lived out there were black and Indian. They were Aboriginal FBA. Here's some more pictures of some of the various black Indians that lived in California. In fact, when the Spanish arrived, there was over 100 tribes in California. Many of the tribes were placed on, missionary posts, like you can see on the left-hand side. And a lot of these people who lived on these missions with these priests, a lot of times the priests would work them to death or they caught diseases. But again, like I said, is that this is the original California people. These were the original Californians. Those red people out there, they're not the original Californians. They're not the original people that lived out there. Louis Charles, 1795 1828, was a famous German-Russian painter and explorer. He's one of the first sketch artists for expedition research. Louis Cloris, who was a Russian of German stock, was born in Yekaterinburg, now Dnipropetrovsk, Ukraine, on March 22nd, 1795. He visited the Pacific and the west coast of North America in 1816 on board the Rurik, being attached in the capacity of artist to Romanov's expedition under the command of Lieutenant Otto von Kotzebue, sent out for the purpose of exploring the Northwest Passage. Now, here's some more pictures of some of the California Indians. You got to remember, in a sense, if you remember, it was Russia. It was Russia that sold much of the western part of the United States to, including Alaska, to the Americans, And that's why we find, in a sense, that it was some of the Russians who created some of the earliest pictures relating to these Aboriginal FBA people that lived in California. By the time the Buffalo Soldiers fought Indians, the Black Indians were killed off and replaced by nomadic Mongoloid Indians from Mexico. Study our true history and not lies. Yes, yes, yes. In fact, in a sense, many of the, they said, these things, "Oh, we didn't know. We never saw no black people. We never saw them till they came. And we thought they were black, and they had to hide the buffalo." That's a damn lie. They lie. Look on the right-hand side. These were the original Indians that lived in California, that lived in the West. Therefore, if these were the original Indians that lived in the West, when they talk about the fact, in a sense, that they had never seen black people, and the buffalo and the black soldiers, buffalo soldiers who were mainly, in a sense, descendants, many of the so-called buffalo soldiers fought in the Civil War, but they were Aboriginal Black Indians, And then you're gonna say you never saw them before. That's a lie. Do you see how they create a lie for the history of America instead of telling you, in a sense, the true history of America, the role of Aboriginal foundational Black Americans? They teach you a lie. Study. And then here's some of the Southern tribes. On the right-hand side, on the left-hand side, we see a picture of a Blackfeet. Now they'll tell you, if you go to Google right now, they'll tell you that Blackfeet never lived in the South. They'll tell you that the only Blackfeet lived in California. I mean, not California, lived in Canada. And yet this is a painting of a Blackfoot, and he wasn't in Canada. See? And then on the right-hand side, you can see some of the pictures of some of the other Black Aboriginal foundational Black Americans that lived in the South. We have a great history, but they don't want you to talk about Black Indians, Aboriginal Indians in California. They don't want you to talk about Black Indians up in the 13 colonies up in the Northeast. They don't want you to talk about Black Indians in the South. Why? Because in a sense, they want you to think you and every one of your ancestors came from Africa. They want to hijack the fact that they stole our land away from us and make you think you can go to Africa and get some of your land back. Hell no. I heard this person the other day. I respect them, so I didn't want to correct them. But he was talking about that much of his ancestry is Nigerian. That's a damn lie, man. Think of what? How can your ancestry be from Nigeria when they stopped accepting slaves after 1800? That meant that the vast majority, well, I guess some may have been snuck in, but the vast majority of Africans, foundational Black Americans that came from Africa, came from the Senegambia region. That's why 22% of foundational Black Americans carry the R1 haplogroup, the Y chromosome R1. That's because, in fact, since that's where that was a predominant group. Yes, some Nigerians may have came, but they wouldn't, in a sense, be the vast majority of foundational Black Americans, because we stopped, in a sense, they weren't bringing slaves to the New World from, in a sense, Nigeria until after, in a sense, people in what we call America today, the United States, has stopped importing slaves. But as you can see, these are some of the southern tribes. In North Carolina, there were many Black Native Americans, including the Yuchi, here's a Cree, and there's a Seminole. Yes. Here's some more Carolina Indians. You can see them again. We see what we see the black. We see the scarf. We also see the tights. And also, you got to remember is that a lot of people don't know is that trousers or the pants that we wear today, these trousers, they came from the Indians. It was black in a sense, Aboriginals who created trousers. If not for the Black Indians, we'd still be wearing tights. La da da, la da dee, la da da. Thank you. Here's some more Black Indians. See, it is so much artwork. It's so much artwork to show that Aboriginal foundational Black Americans were throughout this continent, but they just don't want to show it to you. That's one of the reasons why I made my book, We're Not Just Africans. In my book, We're Not Just Africans, it costs a little bit more money. But what I want to do in my book, that We're Not Just Africans, I wanted to show many of the color paintings that have been painted back in the day. And these color paintings, in a sense, they depict, in a sense, that copper color that our ancestors were recognized as being part of. Here we see some Sekatan and some Yamakra. How should we study Aboriginal history? To study history of Black Aboriginals, we have to look at the journals and writings of Europeans during the colonial period. This is due to the fact that Europeans want to deny the history of Black Aboriginal people because the settlers stole our land without giving us compensation. Thus, the Europeans teach the lie that the original Americans were Mongoloid Native Americans, tribes who came from Mexico that lived in the western part of the United States. As a result, the journals written by colonial Europeans is the best place to find information on Aboriginal Blacks. Two good sources are The History and Present State of Virginia in 4 parts by Robert Beverly, 1673 to 1722, and Barrett Lahoutan's New Voyages to North America, edited by Reuben Gold. This book was also written in the 1700s. So again, in a sense, is that, Caremio, the one thing I do like about Caremio is that Caremio, he's a bibliophile. He can't. He doesn't interpret. He just say whatever he does. He just says whatever he sees. But the one good thing about Karimio, as a Karimio, he finds all these great books that tell you the various histories of the various black groups. So he's somebody in a sense that I would look at his videos, and at least in a sense you should see them justifying those sources. But his interpretation that America is the real old world, nah, that's bull. It's bull. Again, here's the page from the races of mankind. You see, races of men. You see, and I already showed you when they talked about, in a sense, the the American and the black. Now you can look over there and look at the bottom picture on that left hand side. On the left hand side, you can see the European, and so I wanted you to see this whole idea about the European, because as you can see, whereas the European, he is totally different from the American and the African. And what does this show you? This shows you that they clearly recognize the fact, in a sense, that there was a difference between Europeans, Indians, and Africans, but they showed you on this page that the American and the African, in terms of their features, were the same people. We use iconographic evidence in addition to skeletal remains and eyewitness accounts to tell various Indian groups. Here's some pictures of some of the various Indians: Dalis, Algonquin, Powhatan, Seneca, Kootenai, Flatheads, Navajo, Aniyunwi, Chadar, or Choctaw. Then we can see other black Indian groups on the other side. Yes, yes, yes. And then when you look at these black Indians, look at that right hand side. On the picture on the right hand side, we have in a sense photographic evidence. And just look how this photographic evidence of the so-called Aboriginal foundational Black Americans, it agrees completely when we look at the reconstructed faces of the earliest Americans. Look at those reconstructed of the earliest Americans, and you can see, black. The History and Present State of Virginia in 4 parts by Robert Beverly. I want to read some passages from his book. The method of the Indian settlements is altogether by cohabitation in townships, from 50 to 500 families in the town. And each of these towns is commonly a kingdom. So as I told you before, one of the things that really made it hard in a sense to really understand this whole idea of hundreds of Black Indian tribes is that a lot of times each Indian tribe would have its own town, and when they would have their own town, they were considered a kingdom. And because they were considered a kingdom, then therefore, in a sense, we find this wide variety of various Indian or foundational Black American Aboriginal kingdoms. As he said, I continue. Sometimes one king has command of several of these towns when they happen to be united in his hands by descent or conquest. But in such, the method of the Indian settlement is altogether by cohabitation in townships from 50 to 500 families in the town. And each of these towns is commonly a kingdom. So as you can see, we see in a sense that there was this whole idea of unity. Here's another paragraph. The manner the Indians have of building their houses, very important, because see, I think that one thing you had to understand is that Aboriginal foundational Black Americans did not live in tents. They were not a nomadic people. They were a sedentary people. This is what he says about the houses that our ancestors built. The manner the Indians have of building their houses is very slight and cheap. When they would erect a wigwam, which is the Indian name for a house, they stick saplings into the ground by one end and bend the other at the top, fastening them together by strings made of fibrous roots. The wren of the trees or of the green wood of the white oak, which will rev into thongs. The smallest sort of these cabins are conical like a beehive, but the larger are built in an oblong form, and both are covered with the barks of trees, which will rive off into great flakes. Their windows are little holes left open for the passage of the light, which in bad weather they stop with shutters of the same bark, opening the leeward windows for air and light. Their chimney, as among the true born Irish, is a little hole in the top of the house to let out the smoke, having no sort of funnel or anything within to confine the smoke from ranging through the whole roof of the cabins. If the vent will not let it out fast enough, the fire is always made in the middle of the cabin. Their door is a pendant mat when they are near home, but when they go abroad, they barricade it with great logs of wood, barricade with great logs of wood set against the mat. Yes, yes, yes. These are the variety of houses that our ancestors built. Foundational Black Aboriginals did not live in tents. You see, they built houses, and around their houses, they usually, in a sense, had a stockade. You see, I know, and when you look at the cowboy movies, they always show you these forts or these stockades. That's where they got that idea from. They got that from us. When in their travels, they meet with many waters which are not fordable. They make canoes of birch bark by slipping it whole off the trees. In this manner, first they gash the bark quite round the tree at the length they would have the canoe of, then slit down the length from end to end. When that is done, they with their tomahawks easily open the bark and strip it whole off. Then they force it open with sticks in the middle, slope the underside of the ends, and sew them down, which helps to keep the belly open. Or if the birch tree happens to be small, they sew the bark of two together. They seam that down with clay or mud, and then pass over it these canoes by 2, 3, or 4 at a time, according as they are in bigness. By reason of the lightness of these boats, they can easily carry them over land. If they foresee that they are like to meet with any more waters that may impede their march, or else they leave them at the waterside, making no further account of them, except to repass the same waters in their return. Look, see, this is it. We were very inventive people. You see? We were very inventive people. We built boats, we built canoes. And in fact, I think Giap had once, I think he had said somewhere that the word canoe is a Senegalese word. I don't know. I haven't been able to find I haven't been able to look up that source, but it's interesting. But again, as you can see, we built our houses, we built wooden houses. We also built boats whenever we needed them. You are unique people, you foundational Aboriginal Black people. These Indians have no sort of letters to express their words by, but when they would communicate anything that cannot be delivered by message, they do it by a sort of hieroglyphic, a representation of birds, beasts, or other things, sorting their different meanings by the various forms described and by the different positions of the figures. Okay, now look, as you can see, they did have a hieroglyphic script and they did have writing. In the background of this particular slide, you can see one of the writings that they found in the mounds. Yes, yes. As I've told you, well, as I've said many times when I'm talking with our Reverend Dr. Matthews, as I told you, is that Black people have always been a literate people. We've always had language. We've always had writing. You see, they just didn't know it. But I'll continue reading. That language differs very much as intentionally in the several parts of Britain, so that nations at a moderate distance do not understand one another. However, they have a sort of general language, like what La Bontaine calls the Algonquian, which is understood by the chief men of many nations, as Latin is in most parts of Europe, and lingua franca, quite through the Levant. That's what it is. They had in a sense, and a lingua franca. And this lingua franca was called Akaniji. The general language here used is said to be that of the Akanichis, though they have been but a small nation ever since these parts were known to the English. But in what this language may differ from that of the Algonquins, I am not able to determine. It's very interesting because see, the Okanichi language, it was created by the Manican. Manny can. Where did I hear that word before? Oh, yeah, that's right. It's a tribe in Africa called, a Mandy speaking tribe in Africa called the Manican. Get it? Manican American, Manican Africa, Okanichi. What up, though, brother? I continue. I can't think, if anything, but their jealousy that makes them exclude the lineal issue from succeeding immediately to the crown. Thus, if a king have several legitimate children, the crown does not descend in a direct line to his children, but to his brother by the same mother. If he have any and for want of such to the children of his eldest sister, always respecting the descent of the female as a sure side. But the crown goes to the male heir if it may be an equal decree, and for want of such as the female, preferably to any male that is more distant. Yes, yes, yes. Isn't that the way? Isn't that the way? You know, in ancient Egypt, the Pharaoh, in a sense, came from what? The sister side, most of the time, and throughout African societies. So we can see that our Aboriginal, in a sense, FBA continued to keep practices that our ancestors used in Africa. I'm not saying, in a sense, that these were Africans. What I'm telling you, though, is that that we continue to have this cultural tradition. You know, Marie Childs, Dr. Marie Childs in Britain, she's developed this whole idea of the first sight consciousness. And what she means by the first sight consciousness is that often Black people who, although they may live in different lands, they still, in a sense, would be able to create civilizations or create things based upon the idea that it was already in us, you see. Some people would say maybe we have access to the Akashic records, and by having this access, the second sight consciousness relates that whole idea that, if appropriate, you can in a sense obtain or learn about traditions and learn different things that were used by our previous ancestors. Thomas Harrod, who accompanied White and approximately 600 colonists to Roanoke in 1585, Harrod wrote that the chiefs wore aprons made of animal skin with a tail that hung down behind them between their buttocks. The tail was used in carrying quivers of arrows. The Indians' hair, adorned with feathers, was shaved on the right side. Do you see? So here we see some of the Black Indians. You can see the apron they wore, and you can see how they tied their arrows. They tied their arrows, in a sense, to that tail that hung on the back. So as you can see, we were very creative people. They put some red color in the hair. I don't know. Again, as I said, this whole idea of red is very, very interesting. You know, sometimes I really wish I could go back in time, and I wish I could go back in time and I could ask them what made red so important and such a significant color, because a lot of times we wore the bandanas, we wore the red hair. Even today, a lot of Black women, they like to wear red wigs or even color their hair red. I wonder, what is this idea? What does the red really represent to us? But again, as you can see, we can see how the Indians were very unique. You know, whereas the European, he would carry his arrows in a pouch. They carried their arrows, in a sense, tied to their buttocks and transport them around the place. Okay, here's an Amandan chief, and we're going back to the book, and I want to read to you about what the Indians thought about their God. And this is a quote. He freely told me they believed God was universally beneficent, that his dwelling was in the heavens above, and that the influences of his goodness reached to the earth beneath, that he was incomprehensible in his excellence and enjoyed all possible felicity, that his duration was eternal, his perfection boundless, and that he possesses everlasting indulgence and ease. I told him I had heard that they worshiped the devil, and that's why they did not rather worship God, whom they had so high an opinion of, and who would have given them all good things and protect them from mischief, and that the devil could do them. To this he answered, that is true. God is the giver of all good things, but they flow naturally and promiscuously from him. that they are showered down upon all men indifferently without distinction. That God does not trouble himself with the impertinent affairs of men, nor is concerned at what they do, but leads them to make the most of their free will and to secure as many as they can of the good things that flow from him. That therefore was to no purpose, either to fear. So think about this. This is how Aboriginal foundational Black Americans felt about God. Can you see now why they never talked about in a sense wanting Jesus? Why they didn't want to become Christianity? They already knew that there was an Almighty God. They already knew that God controlled the universe. And yet the European always wanted to teach us that our Aboriginal ancestors didn't know God. Yes, we've always known God. See? And that's why I tell people today, if you run away from God, if you run away from belief in God, you're lost. See? You don't see any other every when you read about the Black insurrections, when you read about Nat Turner's rebellion, they don't talk about, in a sense, Jesus Christ. They talk about God. And the reason that Black people, in a sense, our Aboriginal ancestors could accept much of the Bible was not so much by looking at Jesus, but because of the fact that Yahweh, Jehovah, the Master, the Creator, in a sense, reflected how we felt about God. See? They teach you in the books, they teach you, in a sense, that the first people in America had no faith in the Supreme Being, had no faith in God, and that was a lie, and it shows it was a lie. That's why you had to do your homework. You had to do your research if you really want to know your history, if you really want to know who and what and how we lived. The Tutelo Manican. Historian Robert Beverly, in his History and Present State of Virginia, wrote that the Occaneechi language was widely used as a lingua franca. I quote, understood by chief men of many nations, as Latin is in many parts of Europe. Even though he says the Occaneechi have been but a small nation ever since those parts were known to the English. Beverly said that, and I quote, priests and conjurers of the other Virginian tribes perform their adorations and conjugations in this general language, as the Catholics of all nations do their mass in Latin. Linguistic scholars believe that the Occaneechi spoke a dialect of Sian language, Tutelo. That's very interesting. Very interesting, you see, because the Tutelo, they spoke the Manican language. In the history books, they always say Manocan. No, the Europeans called them Manocan, but the people themselves, they called themselves Manican, not Manocan. The Monocans or Manicans of Virginia. The Manicans lived in Virginia in the Roanoke River Valley. They mined copper and grew the three sisters, beans, corn, and squash. The Manican tribe belonged to the Iroquois Confederacy. Kareem Wood, a researcher who claims belong to, I quote unquote, the Manican tribe, which died out in 1880s. Again, the Manican tribe, they died out in 1880, but again, we have one of the red Mongoloid Indians. They're trying to claim that they were Manican so they can get a check, get some money. But they're not really the Manican. But as I said, they're pretend Indians. She claims that the Manican language is related to Tutelo. This suggests that the Occaneechi language was a Mandy language. For example, here we can see some words in Tutelo, English, and Mandy. In Tutelo, the word for black is Sabe, and Mandy is Safe. In Tutelo, the word for good and pure is Api, and Mandy is P. In Tutelo, the word for for father is Ati, and the word for man in Mandy is Che, Ati, T. Then, in a sense, the word for the dead in Tutelo is Tet. The word for dead in Mandy is Tit. So as you can see, the Manican of Virginia, they spoke a Mandy language. See, the other day, some people they think they like to believe, in a sense, that that black people are telling lies when they can relate back to when they talk about, in a sense, that we are more than just, more than just Native Americans. Yes, yes. But see, these people, the Manican, they were not slaves. But although they were not slaves, they spoke an African language. In fact, many of the various African tribes, various American tribes vote African languages. I'm not saying they were Africans, but because of the fact that many of our ancestors did come from Africa before the slave trade, many foundational Black American Aboriginals, they spoke languages related to African languages, not because of the fact that they were enslaved people, but because of the fact, in a sense, that there was always trade between, people in Africa and the Americas. That's how Columbus found his way to America, is that he got that information from the Moors, who was trading with ancient America. The Mandy have left us the following greeting, Niji, Niji, which this is a greeting from the Okanichi language. Need a manifestation of life, friend, Gi male. So in other words, when the people would speak Okanichi, they would say Niji, and since it means, in a sense, friend, and it means male of virility, that meant that Niji said, "What up, brother? What up, though? What up, brother?" And in fact, in Ojibwa language, Niji is a greeting that relates to brother. Aboriginal have beatitude toward life, family, and Europeans. Here's another quote from the writings of these European explorers. They think it unaccountable that one man should have more than another, and that the rich should have more respect than the poor. In that they say, the names of savages which we bestow upon them would fit ourselves better, since there is nothing in our actions that bears an acceptance of wisdom, such as have been in France. We're continually teasing us with the faith and disorders they observed in our town as being occasioned by money. In other words, in a sense, our Aboriginal ancestors, they recognized way back then that money was the root of all evil. They recognized, in a sense, that all of us are equal. I remember when I was growing up, and my mother would always tell us, don't think you're better than nobody. You're not better than nobody else. Always respect other Black people. Always respect them. Always acknowledge the fact, in the sense that you're just as good as them and they're just as good as you. And as we can see, that this whole idea of humility, it goes back to the training that our Aboriginal foundational Black American ancestors were doing. And that's what the European recognized. We recognize early, in the sense, that money is the root of all evil. 'Tis in vain to remonstrate to them how useful the differences of property is for the support of a society. They make jest of what to be laid on that head. Since they neither quarrel nor fight, nor slander one another. In other words, we didn't quarrel or fight, slander one another. You see? They sense art, sciences, and laugh at the differences of degrees, which is observed with us. They brand us for slaves, and call us miserable souls whose life is not worth having, alleging that we degrade ourselves and subjecting ourselves to one man who possesses the whole power and is bound by no law but his own will. That we have continued wars among ourselves, that our children rebel against their parents, that we inspire one another and publicly promote our own destruction. This is written in the 1700s. And this is what Aboriginal foundational people felt about the European. We didn't want to be them. And we still don't want to be them. We try to live around them. We try to respect them, but we don't want to be them because we recognize in a sense that the European, the settler, is too materialistic. We understand that the settler does not teach, in a sense, the humanity of all mankind and that all of us should be treated with respect. We recognize, in a sense, by putting other people over us, over someone else, is that that's wrong, is that we should respect everybody and each other. And isn't that the way it is today? Or we respect people who are rich like Gates, or we respect people, in a sense, who have nothing really to contribute to society except they have material wealth, you see? But we see our attitude towards family, our attitude toward life was what? Is that we should work together, treating each other with respect. See, I'm not making this shit up. This is what the Europeans saw. Baron Lahontan said Aboriginal FBA believed in one great God. This is from Baron Lahontan. Okay. The FBA explained why the sun represented God. Now, this is deep. Let's remember, Ra, ancient God of Egypt. Let's remember. Let's put a shining on our memory by Ra memory. The FBA explained why the sun represented God. In a word, the singular mischief of this unfortunate people consists in denying their assent to anything but what's visible and probable. This is the saying of the true principle of their religion when they consider it abstractly. But if you ask them in particular why they adore God in the sun rather than in a tree or mountain, their answer is that they chose to admire the deity in public by pointing to the most glorious thing that nature affords. What? What? They see the deity in publicly pointing to the most glorious thing that nature adores. And what do we all adore? We all adore the damn sun. That's why the Egyptians, all of us, why we've always recognized the sun as the epitome of God. We didn't say that the sun is God. We said that the sun could represent God because the sun is so important in terms of how we survive, how we live, and how we become who we are. Damn. Those foundational Aboriginal Black Americans, damn. We knew philosophy, we knew the right, and we knew the wrong. What is FBA culture? American culture is FBA culture, the food, the music, the language. We've been taught a lie. The lie was that we have no culture. You see? We have no culture. You know, people ignorant of that culture believe the lies of strangers. Yes, yes. Many people believed when Herskovitz wrote his book, The Myth of the Negro Past, that we had no culture, you see? But knowing your culture is winning. Get my book. We're not just Africans. In reality, we do have a culture. The FBA culture is American culture. Our culture began 100,000 years ago when we first arrived in the Americas from Africa. As a result, our ancestry is African. Our heritage depends on the state we came from and our Aboriginal tribal origins. We already went through this. This is America. You see? On the left side, we have America. On the right side, we have Africa. There's no difference. But don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. As foundational Black Americans, we have our own unique culture, even though it may resemble Africa. There's continuity between Aboriginal foundational Black Americans and Africans. African Muslims wore feathers. Cherokee wore feathers too, right? There's continuity between Aboriginal foundational American. African Muslims wore feathers in Africa. We see in a sense, the Aboriginal Black people wore feathers. Don't get it twisted. That doesn't mean that everything came from Africa. What it means is that because of our second sight consciousness, Because of the fact that we're related, we can hark back to those traditions that make us who and what we are. Here's a picture of a Seminole woman, and on the left hand side is a picture of my wife. I've been trying. They resemble each other. I've been trying to find a picture of my wife frowning, but I can't find any pictures of my wife frowning. I guess I made her a happy woman. Because she definitely made me happy. But as you can see, my baby doll, she favors exactly this Seminole woman. But my wife, her was her father. Her father, he was Cherokee, and her mother and her mother, she don't know what Indian side they came from. All her mother told her is that her mother's mother, didn't know what tribe they came from, but that their great grandmother couldn't speak English. And on my wife's father's side, his father was Cherokee and his mother was Blackfeet. So again, in a sense, but I thought this was interesting that this Seminole woman, kind of looked like my baby doll. Tradition, FBA culture, tradition of a sedentary culture. Agricultural traditions of three sisters: beans, squash, maize, plus rice, okra, and tomatoes. The clothing included togas, trousers, kufi caps, turbans, head wraps. Look over there on the right-hand side. As you can see, we see the Yamasi when they were fighting the British. And when we look at these people, we see we see the head wrapping, and then we see Sufi caps, and then we see turbans. And then when we look at some of then we look at the bottom, we can see how they wore robes, and head wraps. So this is part of our culture, The tools we used were hoes and a tomahawk. The Algonquin word tomahawking means used for cutting. A tomahawk was a stone head attached to wooden handles, secured with rawhide and sinew. It was a general purpose tool used for chopping, cutting, and even used as a weapon. Tomahawk, baby, not a hatchet. A tomahawk. African and Aboriginal architecture houses made of local material. Palisades around the villages, family habitation site. A palisade, sometimes called a stake wall or paling, is typically a fence or defensive wall made from iron or wood, stakes, or tree trunks and used as a defensive structure or enclosure. As you can see, right next to it, we can see in a sense how this was the average Aboriginal Black American homestead. We didn't live in teepees. Stop. Don't ever imagine that. We didn't live in teepees. We stayed in one place. We were sedentary. The palisade. African and Aboriginal architecture. Houses made of local material. Palisades around the villages. And these were defensive structures. As you can see at the top, you can see on the right, on the left hand side, you can see some palisades, or foundational Aboriginal Black villages, and you can see here, we can see another palisade that they built in Benin, down in Nigeria. And remember, these were found before these pictures of how Aboriginal Americans lived. These were made before African slaves came over here. So you can see that this whole idea of building a palisade, even though it may have resembled palisades over in Africa, the architectural technique did not come from Africa. It's already here. The agricultural tradition of foundational Black Americans was the three sisters: beans, squash, maize or corn, plus rice, okra, and tomatoes. I remember my father, he used to have every spring he would have a garden out in the suburbs, and he would grow these three crops. I didn't know why the hell he liked, because I never liked squash. But I don't know, but he would always grow these three plants. So he taught me at an early age, how to, in a sense, how to plant, how to grow crops. He also taught me how to clean squirrels and rabbits. And I used to be able to clean those squirrels and rabbits. He also taught me how, in a sense, what things that we should put in the water with the squirrels and with the rabbit to get out what he said was the wild taste. I don't know what the wild taste was because we was always putting those various onions and other things in the water with the squirrels and rabbits after he hunted them. You know, again, the clothing, as you can see, you can look at the clothing, togas, trousers, kufi caps, turbans, head wraps. So you can see that many other things associated with black people today, you know, we were having them back there. And then again, what I want you to really look at is that when you look at that picture of the Yamasi, when you look at that picture of the Yamasi, if you look at the two guys in the front with their tomahawks, if you look at those head wrappings, they had the same head wrappings as I showed you earlier. That's why I wanted you to pay attention to those Carib Indians, because those Carib Indians who were living on Jamaica, they had the same head wraps as these people. Second sight consciousness, also to show the unity of cultures. You see, and to show in the sense that there was a relationship by the Aboriginal black people in North America and throughout the Caribbean and even up into Africa. But you can see, in a sense, these styles of clothing, these way of life, these way of living. We were doing these things long before the Europeans got here. We had the tomahawk, and here we can see the tomahawk. And see, the tomahawk was much better than what the European axe, because see, the tomahawk, you could use it in a sense to nail. You could use it in a sense for hoeing. You could use it for chopping. And it was also a good weapon for cutting off, European heads. Wow. Religion was used to attempt to eliminate FBA culture. East Coast Mongoloid people had no culture. They were adopting FBA. Western Mongoloid Indians had a nomadic culture. Europeans had to acculturate Mongoloid Indians. They had to restrict the movement of Mongoloid Indians, so they put them on reservations. Also, the government to in a sense assimilate the Mongoloid Indians, they sent them to boarding schools, and that was to destroy their Indian identity. But see, the original foundational Black Americans was a combination of Aboriginal and African culture. Yes, we was all on the same plantation. The government rarely made treaties with the FBA Aboriginals. They just took our land. Therefore, in a sense, we never really, in a sense, looked upon Europeans as gods. We never looked upon ourselves as God, but we recognized that they were powerful. But we also recognized that we had to fight for our rights. Have you ever wondered why foundational Black Americans, they just fight all the time? Even if we ain't got a club, even if we ain't got a gun, we still go to court, or we still try to argue. You can find a sister, you can be whooping her ass, and she's still going to keep on fighting to let you know that she believes in this or she believes in that. I think a lot of that comes from our Aboriginal heritage. I think because our Aboriginal people always believed in the sense that you should fight for what's right. That's what has made us one of the only people on the planet Earth that fights white supremacy. We're the only people on the planet Earth that have tried to write a true and accurate history of the world. And now I'm trying to write a true and accurate history of our Aboriginal heritage. And see, we have so long forgotten who we were. I'll admit, when I was in high school, and my mom, my mom had let me know that we were Choctaw. I didn't really care about being a Choctaw because I looked at cowboy movies, and the Indians always lost. I didn't want to be a loser. And since I didn't want to be a loser, I didn't want to do that. But again, in a sense, these are parts of our Aboriginal culture. These are parts of the culture we have today. Aboriginal FBA refused to leave their lands, even though they lost title to the land. Even though we lost title to the land, they took our land. When they told the Mongoloid Indians to go out to the so-called Indian country in Oklahoma, the Black Aboriginals, the Aboriginal Black foundational Americans, they didn't leave Georgia. They didn't leave North Carolina. They didn't leave Massachusetts. They didn't leave New York. We stayed on our lands. Yeah, the European man took our land away from us, but we stayed on our land. We didn't migrate to the so-called Indian country. See? And those black Indians that did migrate to the Indian country, later they started saying that all of them was just slaves. And they wasn't all slaves. Those black people went to the Indian country. They were full-blooded Cherokee, Cree, whatever. But they just started labeling us as slaves over there, and they took away their heritage. Just like they took away the heritage of the Black Indians that remained in the Midwest, the Black Indians that remained in the South. They just took away, in a sense, our heritage. But that couldn't take away the fact that our parents, our grandparents taught us who we were. Our grandparents taught us that we were the Aboriginal people of this country. Some of the religions of foundational Black Americans, Islam, Christianity, Hebrewism, they tried in a sense to destroy our faith, but we still kept our faith, And this is the whole point, is that they failed to destroy clothing styles. They failed to destroy hairstyles. They failed to destroy music. They failed to destroy language. Yes, yes, yes. These Europeans want to make you feel that we don't have a culture. They want to make you feel they took away our culture. But we still was able to preserve our culture. We still was able to preserve our numerous languages. You see, FBA language is not standard American English. See? We like to give ourselves, like when our kids are growing up, we give our kids nicknames, to reflect their character and nature. Like Red Fox. See, how did he get his name? Red Fox, because he was what? He thought he was cool. He thought he was slick, We use slang words that are unique words to reflect our culture and our lifestyles. For example, the Tut language, Ebonics, English, all this. The most important thing to remember is that, yes, we have a foundational Black American vocabulary, and our vocabulary, the words we use, are of African and Aboriginal origin. For example, banana came from West Africa, bongo from West Africa, cola. But in the sense is that these are words in the sense that we brought into the English language that reflect, in the sense, the fact that we are people of two groups. We are of the Aboriginal and the African. That's who we are. You see, our foods, they always want to tell you that, Black people don't have a culture. But then they took our foods and said, this is American culture. Fried chicken, Southern cooking, greens, sweet potatoes. We made that issue up. You see, our music, they copy our music. The world follows our music. Why? Because we are the culture bearers. American culture is our culture. Look at our hairstyles. Look at these hairstyles today. When you look at these hairstyles of these Black men and women, you see the same hairstyles as being used back in the day. See? We continue to carry our culture as foundational Black Aboriginals. We continue to carry our culture up to this day. The European wants to tell you that your home is in Africa. Yes, some of us came from Africa, but America is our home. Here we can see, look at these brothers. Here we see some Seminoles at the top. And then we see some brothers back in the 70s, baby, going to the Players Club. Same thing. Got the same hats, got a feather in the hat. Nigga, what? Nigga, what? Culture, baby. Culture, culture, culture. First sight consciousness. Player. Our art, the beautiful art we make from our artists. We do have a culture. We do have a culture. This culture reflects what? Our way of being, our way of life. Stop it. Stop it. Stop letting people tell you that you don't have a culture. Foundational Black Americans, we have a culture, and our culture is American culture. FBA is not a group. FBA is not an organization. FBA is a lineage. A lineage is lineal descent from an ancestor, ancestry or pedigree. As a result, we are descendants of the African and Aboriginal Blacks who built America. This is what Jacques René Chirac said. We bled Africa for 4.5 centuries. We looted their raw materials. Then we told lies that the African are good for nothing in the name of religion. We destroyed their culture and after being made rich at their expense, we now steal their brains through miseducation and propaganda to prevent them from enacting black retribution against us. We, my ass. We have been taught a history of lies, a history where we are the victims of white racism. These lies teach us that we are a people too weak to defend ourselves because the natural superiority of the European race over the primitive African, whose emotionalism makes it impossible for them to do anything without the guidance and direction of the European. That is a lie. We are Aboriginal, Black, Indigenous people. We have an ancestry of African origin. FBA historical truths. Identity matters. They try to call us colored. They try to call us minorities. They try to call us American. But we are foundational Black Americans. 200,000 Black people fought in the Civil War to free ourselves, you see. Look at how these people came. Look at how these people since, 25 Black people won the Congressional Medal of Honor. Look at how these thousands of Black people joined in the Army, and they joined the military from Alabama. Look at Mississippi, 17,000 Black people, Mississippi. Louisiana, 14,000 Black people fought. Was enlisted in the the Black regiments. From Tennessee, you had 20,000 Black people. From Kentucky, 23,000. Yes. Don't let nobody tell you. I'm sorry to tell you this. Don't let nobody tell you. Don't let nobody tell you that Black people didn't fight for their own freedom. Yes, we fought for our own freedom. We fought in the Civil War and we freed ourselves. Those were people who had been slaves, former enslaved people. They took up the gun and they fought for themselves. They fought for us. We freed ourselves. FBA culture, the American culture, the food, the music. Look at this. They use the three sisters. They love to eat chicken and rice. And then the fruit of life, the fruit of life, the fruit of life. The fruit of life is collard greens and the tomato. The tomato came to foundational Black Americans in 1526. And it was in 1526 that Haitians came from the Caribbean and they settled in Florida. When these people came from the Caribbean, they brought with them the tomato. That's why we love tomatoes. We love greens. And then the bread of life. What is the bread of life? The bread of life is hot water cornbread. See, the European, the settler, the massa, he gave us a little corn. He said, y'all do what y'all do. And we did do what we do. We took that cornbread and mixed it with a little damn hot water and then put a little salt on it. Then we made us some hoe cakes, hot water cornbread, got that damn plow. Yeah, the plow, got the plow. Put that plow over the fire. Clean that dirt off that plow. And then we fried up some damn hoe cakes, hot water cornbread. American culture is our culture. FBA built America before and after Europeans came to the USA. We built the railroads. We cleared the land. We built the food. We built everything in this country, the houses. Who do you think built the houses on the damn plantation? You think they brought some architect from New York City to build those white houses? No. Black people built those damn white houses on those plantations. They're the ones that built the houses and made them so beautiful. American technological superiority was made by Black people. It was emascular. This guy, he designed and created the first machine to make shoes. We had Charles Drew. Charles Drew was the first one, in a sense. He was a surgeon and professor. He's the one who, in a sense, taught us how to do blood transfusions and be able, in a sense, to provide blood for people in emergencies. Sadly, though, he died. He needed a blood transfusion, but there wasn't no Black hospital around, and he died. But just to show you the greatness, the uniqueness of Charles Drew. C.R. Patterson, he invented one of the first cars. Yes, we had cars. We invented cars before, in a sense, Ford Motor Company. but he didn't have the money to really produce them en masse. But we, in a sense, made the way. We led the way. Oh, damn. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. Otis Boykin, he invented the resistor. And it's from the resistor, the TVs, radios, computers. Everything is based upon his invention. Stop it. Stop it. Don't let these people tell you that foundation of Black Americans didn't contribute to the rise of America. We made the greatest inventions. Look at his brother Marky Dean. He invented the first laptop computer. A brother. Henry T. Thomas. He invented the first cellular phone. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop allowing people to tell you that foundational Black Americans aren't the culture. Stop allowing people to tell you that foundational Americans haven't in a sense contributed. Yes, we made America. We made the culture. We made the technology. We built the land. America wouldn't be ish without us. You see? But sadly, every time Black people, in a sense, wanted economic independence, you see, the European got in our way, the settlers got in our way. They burned down Rosewood. They burned, in a sense, Black Wall Street. But see, a lot of people don't know why they burned Black Wall Street. They don't know why they bombed Black Wall Street. Well, I'm gonna tell you why. The brothers in Oklahoma had them a machine gun, and because they had a machine gun, whenever the Europeans would try to invade the neighborhood, they would mow them down with that machine gun. So that's why they went and got an airplane. They went on an airplane so they could drop some explosives down to knock out that machine gun so they could go in. Then we also had, in a sense, many riots in 1819. Yes. Every time we created our own economic centers, every time we found a way, in a sense, to make it do what it do, Europeans came to destroy it, see? And then the final thing they did was they, in a sense, allowed the Aboriginals. It was always allowing the Aboriginals to take away, in a sense, our identity. But it really happened after they made the Dawes Rolls. Many people don't understand when they made the Dawes Rolls, they not only, in a sense, allowed many white people become $5 Indians. What they also did is that they declared every Black Aboriginal, they declared them as free men. They declared them as freemen to ignore the fact that we were, in a sense, Indians. And they wanted, in a sense, to make the Mongoloids the pretendians and allow them to steal our heritage and steal our culture, you see. As you can see, FBA have not lost their culture. The roots of FBA culture is Aboriginal and African. It reflects our heritage made in America, but relying on our culture, FBA culture. Again, join my Patreon to see the slides. You can see me on Twitter at Dr. Clyde Winters 8. And you're looking at my videos on my website. Please subscribe. Right now, press the like button and the subscribe button. Like it, subscribe. So other people may, in a sense, be able to see this fine video and learn more about our FBA Aboriginal heritage. You can order my books on Amazon.com. If you want to find out more about the history of Black people, you got to get Dr. David and Motep's book, The First Americans Were Africans, expanded and revised. You see, the whole point is this: that a lot of people, not me, but David used to go to a lot of powwows, and when he would go to these powwows, a lot of the brothers and sisters say, "Stop it, David! Stop, in a sense, saying that we're Africans." But David refused to do that. I love this man. I miss him. He was a brother, you know. He used to always remind me. He played football at the University of Maryland. I played football at the University of Illinois. We never played against each other. But his birthday came in March. My birthday came in December. And he said, "Clyde!" I said, "What?" He said, "You better remember I'm your big brother." I said, "Yeah, David, you're my big brother." But David was wonderful man. The day they're having the service, and this was a down brother. And get his book. And as I've shown you, is that yes, we weren't all Africans, but at the same time, we do in a sense have African ancestry. Our ancestors came from Africa, maybe, but we had our own culture. If you want to find out more about various African groups, get my book, The Mandy in Ancient America, and definitely get my big book, African Empires in Ancient America. My book, African Empires in Ancient America, it describes every, I repeat, every Black empire, even the Black empires in South America, you see, and the African empires in North America. A lot of people always talk about, in a sense, the pyramids in South America, and that the South American pyramids are older than the African pyramids. You're dummies. They were built by Black people from Exum, Ethiopia. Some of them even came from Egypt. See, some came from Kush. Learn the true history of Black people. And in January, I'm going to bring in my book where I'm going to really explain and discuss the history of our Aboriginal heritage. Again, these are some of my books. You can get them. And again, like I said, is that if you want to find out more, in a sense, about, if you want to find out more about the various, peoples, what you want to do is you want to get this latest page that came out, at Swarthy Nerd, the Swarthy Nerd, because this I answer a lot of questions that you may find interesting and that you may find informative. Okay, again, thank you guys for showing up, and I'd like all of you to, 111 Truth Searcher, thank you for coming. Chemistry Black Magic, hi, that's right, thank you. Go Travel Brown, Angel. Angel says, great peace, love, and respect to you, Dr. Winters, and the chat. I'm Aboriginal American. I'm looking forward to your discussion. Yama, and I hope you'll get my book when it comes out. When it comes out. Any information about the Blackfoot of South Carolina, North Carolina, and Black Cherokee of Georgia and the Carolinas? Yeah, it's information. Some of that information is my book. We're not just Africans, but in my new book, I'm going to give a detailed discussion. See, many people, as I said, whenever you look up Blackfeet, they're going to send you to Canada. But I'm going to explain how many of the Blackfeet who are in Canada that they came, in a sense, that they originally came from North Carolina, South Carolina. What happened is that some Blackfeet, when after the Revolutionary War, they moved up to Canada. But most of the Aboriginal foundational Americans, I said before, they mainly remained in the various southern states. We didn't see why we had to leave. We wasn't going to allow them to just take away our history and culture. Okay, here, Coach Brown makes a very good point. Settlers been gaslighting from day one. The only reason we didn't wipe them out upon landing, yeah, we should have wiped them out. But the old problems, as I tried to explain, the thing that made it very difficult for us is that we didn't really, in a sense, we didn't really want to we didn't really look at race. And even today, you can't get all Black people to say we're going to kill all whites or we're going to attack all whites. We still want to respect everybody. And in a way that's bad. But when you start to, in a sense, understand that you have to look at the white supremacists as your enemy. And it's only by looking at the white supremacy as your enemy that you can have any success in terms of mounting a real movement and finding, in a sense, our history and culture. You know, Powerline Awakening says, "Hello, beautiful people. B1 Hotep knowledge is power." She's right. You know, knowledge is power, and it's only through knowledge, in a sense, that we can become a successful people. What about the Black Cherokees? My great my great grandfather was a Black Cherokee from Raleigh County, Georgia. His skin was jet black, very high cheekbones, and straight hair. Yeah, you know, like I told you, my wife's grandfather was a Cherokee, and the thing is, this is but see, it's just that they just want to, as I told you, that's why I'm writing this book. That's why I'm writing this book, to have the history there so everybody can see it. Because see, what they want to do is they want to always make you believe that no Black Cherokee existed. Yeah, the Black Cherokee, they just didn't leave Georgia. They didn't go on the Trail of Tears. You see? And it was good they didn't, because they still have their heritage. Because see, many of those Black tribesmen who went to Oklahoma on the Trail of Tears, they, instead of them giving them recognition as being full tribal members, and in fact, the real Cherokee, they started classifying them as freemen. You see, and when you allow other people to write your history, that's when you lose. You always lose. Okay, the Red Roadies. Back in the early 90s, organized a Native American event in Brooklyn, a local church. The minister brother told me that we brought down ancestral Indian spirits, and those Indians were Black. Yes, they were. One of the largest Indian villages was what we called, in a sense, that park in New York. That park in New York, that used to be an Indian settlement. Yes, that park in New York used to be an Indian settlement. They took away all the Indian land, and then they a lot of the and then they made it into the park. I forgot the name of the park, but it's the largest park in New York City. But that was an Indian town, and they took it away. And a lot of people used to wonder. I've seen some videos where some of the brothers would ask their parents, when did we move to New York from Mississippi? When did we move from New York to when did we move to New York from Georgia and all that? And their parents would tell them, we didn't move from New York. We didn't move from Mississippi or Georgia to New York. We've always been here. Yes, there was always Black people in the city of New York. There's always Black people. There was Black people all the way from there, all the way into Canada. But again, like I said, that's why I'm writing this book. We need a real history. I showed you all those other books. They always make it look as though if you claim to be a Black Indian, your ancestor was a slave. No, that's not right. And that's why I'm writing my book. And that's why I did this video, to let people know the authentic history of the Aboriginal foundational Black Americans. Okay, here's an interesting thing. Peace to the chat. With all due respect to Dr. Winters, my elders taught me Aboriginals never called themselves Black, Indian, or African. These were fighting words to my clan, Yama. Yeah, they were fighting words to your clan, fighting words to other clan. That's why the white man took our land from us. That's why the white man took our land from us, because we didn't have any damn unity. That's why today, in the sense, instead of calling ourselves, damn, I got Choctaw. What the hell? I Choctaw. Give a damn. I'm B1 first, Black first. You know why I'm Black first? Because the same reason that Africans came over as slaves was because other Africans sold their people into slavery. In 1634, when those Cree people, in a sense, sold other Black people to the damn white man, that began the slave trade, the first slave trade, which sent over 100,000 to 300,000 Black Indians to working down the plantations in the Caribbean. And they all went there because they didn't recognize that we were unified as one people. They didn't recognize that we were, in a sense, one group. They were always members of their tribe, always members of their nation. And that's how the white man controlled us. That's how the settlers still control us. It's to divide and rule. I'm sorry. Angel, I have nothing against anybody, and you're absolutely correct. Your family did teach you that, and they taught you that because that's how we became, in a sense, slaves, and that's how we lost our land here in America. Okay, you're right. Black people on all continents, even in Northern Europe. There's archaeological evidence of huge settlements in New York, England, for example. History is a story told to us by the hegemony. You're absolutely right. That's why you got to buy my books. I wrote 40 books. I wrote on Black people in Europe, Black people in China. My video on Black people in Southeast Asia has been viewed by almost 100,000 people. Get my books. Learn your history. See, learn your history. When you know your history, right here on this site, I got videos on every ancient Black civilization, every one of them on this site. Check them out. You see, then you'll not only, in a sense, understand that white supremacists lie about our history, you'll have the ammunition to explain to other people why and how Black people got to these various places. Okay, here's another thing she says. I have a court order verifying my identity as Aboriginal American. The term foundational Black American has no legal basis. That is made up term. You got it right. Just like the whole point is Aboriginal is a made up damn term. Get out of here. Indian is a made up term. Get out of here. If you went to court and you tried to claim it, and in a way, in a sense, you may have done this, but most of the time, in most courts, they don't recognize too much evidence. They don't even recognize genetics. You see, all this is a made up term. The fact, in the sense that they call you an Indian would be a made up term because as you said, they didn't call themselves an Indian. But if they claim that you're an Indian, you're living under the made up term. You see, but there's nothing wrong with that. You got your identity card, but your identity card doesn't mean that you're more Indian than I am. Your identity card doesn't mean you're more Indian than Dane Calloway, and Dane Calloway is the #1 Indian in America. Get out of here, baby. Get out of here. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop letting the damn card identify you. My grandmama verified my ass. You waiting for a damn card. Okay, here's another one. I got interested in this after seeing old sculptures from Mesoamerica, which were clearly sculptures of Black people, made before proper history dates, them reaching time. Something was fishy. Yeah, you're right, something was fishy. But the beauty of it is this, is that, the internet has done wonders because the internet has allowed people to put online more and more pictures of the ancient people that occupied the United States. That's one of the reasons that made David and Hotep's book so good, is that he was able, in a sense, to put on his cover some people from Banampak. I wrote a lot on the ancient Maya. I want to do a book to help people to be able to read the Mayan language and let people know what those Black people are saying to each other. I did a little bit on it. I've written on the Olmec language, but this other book I want to show, this other book that I'm planning on doing, if I live long enough. I'm 72 years old, so hey, I got one foot in the grave. But if I do live long enough, I do want to do this book and show what the people were writing. I did a program with Reverend Dr. Matthews, and I talked about, in a sense, some of the sub-pyramids in Mesoamerica, and I even talked about some of the writings that were in those tombs. But you're right in a sense, Sarah, real talk. You're right, is that it is very important to understand that there are images from South America and other places, especially Mesoamerica, because see, a lot of people think that every black person in Mesoamerica or Chiapas in Mexico are descendants of slaves. No, they're not descendants of slaves. Many of these people, their ancestors go back further and further in time. But when you don't have the history, see, that's why I spend my time doing these videos. That's why I spend my time writing my books. Is I do videos and I write books so that our people can understand and have in a sense the facts to bag up whatever they're talking about. Our history is unique. Our history is interesting. Stop being afraid of being black. There's nothing wrong with being black. But see, so many people have an inferiority complex. And because they have an inferiority complex, they don't want to be black. Like, I remember John Henry Clark. He's always said that I don't want to be called black because there's no black nation. There's no black nation in history that was called black. And that's a lie. It's a lie. The Egyptians, they called themselves what? Kemetu, which means the black people. And they lived in a land called what? Kemet. So stop that stuff. And stop talking about a legal term. The legal term for black people is black, for one. And that's implied when we talk about that 4/5 a man on a plantation. Then the second legal term for black is freeman, because we know that's how they identified many of the people after slavery is freeman. You see, and that was another term for black. So stop it. Stop hating being black. Nothing wrong with being black. I'm proud to be black. I'm black and I'm proud. Say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud. Okay, and then listen to this. Here, Angel again. Thank you, Angel. Peace out to the chat. For all due respect to Dr. Wintersworth's discussion, we Aboriginal Americans are not black or Indian. We are dark-skinned with textured hair. Look out for my book soon. Yeah, I'm looking out for your book, Angel. And but again, in the sense is that, hey, I'm sorry to tell you this, we are black. And as I've shown you, even in when the colonialists, when the settlers, when they wrote about us, they described us as black, baby. They described us as black. You can run away. You can run away from your identity, Angel, but the fact remains. You see, you can call yourself any issue you wish. See, but the point is this: is that may have nothing to do with your ancestry. See, what tribe did you belong to? What language did you speak? Because you better be careful. Because what I tell you is that the main language on the East Coast was Okinachi, and Okinachi was a lingua franca that was mainly made up of Mandingo words. That's why many of the Ojibwe, the original Ojibwe, most of them were black, and that's why their language, in a sense, goes back a lot to the Mandy language. And first, like the Nanico numerals are all about the Mandingo. See, Angel, do some research, do some original research, find out what you was described of, and then you can say you aren't black, but you were described as black in the text. Love yourself. Okay, he says, hello, Dr. Winters. What books would you recommend on Aboriginal Americans for skeptical people identifying and attempting to connect to African roots? Well, the point is this: is that you can just read any of the colonial books, any of the you can look at any of the books written by the explorers. You can look at the books in the sense that relate to the colonials. But see, the only problem is this: is that, as I showed you, when you look at these books, because of the fact that our ancestors, they may have came here 100,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago, a lot of times you're going to see evidence that's going to show that there's a relationship between Aboriginal people and African people. And the reason is there's a connection. There's three reasons. The first reason is that the first people that came to the Americas came from Africa. The reason they came from Africa is that because of the Ice Age, there was no way you could get to America, trying to sail to America, because there was ice, and you couldn't come from Asia because of the fact that there was ice blocking it. But see, the closest distance between the Americas and the old world is Africa. Africa is only 1,000 miles from Florida. 1,000 miles from Brazil. That's number one. Number two, we've been, okay, number one, we came from Africa 100,000 years ago. We know that number two, 20,000 years ago, the people in North America, they used the Solutrean toolkit. We know that the oldest Solutrean tools were not made in America or made in Europe. The oldest Solutrean tools were made in South Africa. Therefore, in a sense, we know in a sense that the Solutreans had to have also come from Africa. We know that by 12,000 BC, the Clovis people, and one of the ancestors of Clovis people was Anzac baby rather. Anzac baby carries Y chromosome R. It carried R1. Y chromosome R comes from the Senegambian region. Yes. And in fact, today, 22% of Black Americans carry the R1 haplogroup. Secondly, and finally, in 1310, Abu Bakari, he left the Mali Empire with 20,000, I repeat, with 20,000 people. And these Malians, they established colonies along the Mississippi River. They built mounds. They established colonies down in Brazil and up in Canada. That's one of the reasons why we find that in Virginia, you find the Manican. That's why as far away as the cliff dwellings in Colorado, you find in a sense the Mandy people. Therefore, it is very difficult, you see. But then what the arguments comes down to is when are you African and when are you American? I believe I'm an Aboriginal. I believe we have a great history. But as I told you before, our ancestry is African. Our heritage is whatever Indian tribe or religious group we belong to. Let's see. You're right. I can understand travel abroad. Yep. Tried to draw a line from Mandy to Kumeyu for an octogenarian settler last week. Her head exploded. Her head would even more explode if I showed her the Egyptian words and Mandy words that are identical. See, don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. You can be Aboriginal and still be African. You can be Aboriginal and still be Black. In fact, that's why our ancestors lost their land. That's why our ancestors, in a sense, lost everything because the European did the hijack. He said, "Damn, they look Black to me, huh?" So I'm not gonna call them by their tribal names. I'm gonna just call them as being Black. That's why, in a sense, when you read about the free colored, he wasn't no damn free colored in Georgia. You know the only free colored in Georgia, Alabama? Those were the Indians. This is how the European, he stole our heritage. He stole our heritage by first calling us free Indian, free colored. Then later he called, in a sense, the Black Indians freemen. And so what he did is that he's always, in a sense, been still in our culture. And so you can run away from Black all you want. I'm sorry. You can run away from Black all you want. But the point is this, is that got to call a spade a spade. See? Resurrected Anu, I love you, Mr. Winston. I have always prayed attention. Thank you. Thank you for praying for me. I need it. For my old ass, I'm 72 years old. Pray that I'll be around tomorrow. There's no guarantee. Thank you, Chemistry. To Grandmaster Aboriginal Baba Shaman, Dr. Winners. Woo! Thank you. I needed that. We want our land and our gold back now. You know, I can tell you this. I can tell you this chemistry is that, you know, some of the people, some of your brothers and sisters, like Ansari and a few others, they're going to the Court of the Americas, and they're trying to get our Aboriginal lands back and our Aboriginal money, and see, but they have to kind of prove our ancestors. See what they're using in their court briefs down there are some of my genetic articles. I've written about 4 or 5 articles on genetics where I show that the genetics of in a sense our Aboriginal ancestors is related to the genetics of foundational Black Americans today. No matter what you may feel about foundational Black Americans, foundational Black American, you may say it's made up, but it relates to the fact that we are unique people. You see, Claude Anderson, he used to always try to say that we were Native Americans, but when he said we were Native Americans, some people would get us mixed up with the Mongoloid people, the red man. You see, and we do not want to refer to ourselves as Native Americans, even though we are the only real Americans in this country. We was here before the Mongoloids got here. We were here before, in a sense, Europeans got here. You see, and so we say foundational Black Americans because when you read the literature of the settlers, when you read when they discussed us, when you read how they described us as copper-colored Black people, then therefore, in a sense, that's why Black is the most relevant term to apply to Aboriginal people, because of the fact, in the sense that when you read the text, see, if you read the text, you're not going to find in there about any descriptions of the people being anything but the word Black. So then that's why Black is a good term for us. And foundational Black Americans is a very explicit term to show our uniqueness. Are the Garifuna ancestors of the FBA? No. The Garifunas are not their predecessors, but they're not foundational Black Americans. The Garifuna, they go back to the Okos. See, some of you, I hope some of you guys will look under Reverend Matthews. I did a video this week on the ancient American women, and see most of the Garifuna, their ancestors go back to the Okos and other Black tribes. You ought to remember, in a sense, is that there were already Black people in Central America, Mexico, before the Olmecs came. The Olmecs came from Africa, but there was already Black people there. So the Garifuna, their ancestors go back to the people in Chiapas, and also, in a sense, some of the people that lived in Guatemala before, in a sense. But they adopted the Olmec culture. But the Garifuna, no, they're not related to foundational Black Americans. They have an entirely different tradition, you see. Entirely different tradition. Could we hear on the Anu, Namur, or Cro-Magnon, or Troglodyte, Niger, nigger? Well, the thing is this: that I've done talks on those at the Reverend Matthews, or you can find talks on those here on my site. Look it up on my site right here where you're at. Not under the live broadcast, but go to my regular videos, and you can see papers on that. The Troglodyte, niggers, Nigers, that's very complicated because Professor Marie Childs, she's shown, in a sense, that the word Niger, nigger, it was already being used by the kings of Scotland. So I don't know if the Europeans just used that to attack us, or they used that, in a sense, because they just wanted to try to be funny. I don't know which one it is. They say, could you have a round table with Baba Kaba, Taj Tariq, and Sarah Seti? That would be perfect. It would be okay, but see, the whole point is this: is that they couldn't. They really, in a sense, we couldn't really have We couldn't really have a round table because the thing is this is that their focus is mainly Egyptian. My focus is a little bit on Egyptian, but my focus is more towards our Aboriginal heritage. See, back in the day, a lot of people, they used to love to talk about the various Egyptian influences. I like to talk about the influence of Black people on every continent in the world. So it could be a very interesting table. Baba Kaba, and David and Motep, we did discussions together. We did several discussions when we on Reverend Matthews' page. So it would be okay with me, if they wanted to do that. Okay, this person said, Dr. Winters, our people are embarrassed by slavery, which is why they push away from being African or Black, yet be one. You're right, Lester. Some of them are embarrassed. But see, I'm proud of my African heritage. Look at this. We are the only people on the planet Earth that may have been enslaved for 400 years. And today, some of us are more wealthy than our damn former masters. We're the only people on the planet Earth. You think about this. We're the only people on the planet Earth, former slaves, that dominate world culture. I repeat, we dominate world culture. The entire world follows whatever we say. The best example was when I think it was George Floyd, when he got killed. When George Floyd got killed, you see, we set it on fire over here, and we were able, in a sense, to make people all the way in Britain tear down the statues of slavery. You see, we're the only people on earth. They copy our music. They copy our language. I be looking at, I love anime, as I said earlier, I love anime. Then you be reading anime, next thing you know, the character anime saying, my bad. Wait a minute. They copy our language. They copy our music. And who the hell don't want fried chicken? Get out of here. You know anybody that don't eat fried chicken? Where do you think it came from? Came from my Aboriginal grandma. She could cook some good ass fried chicken. Ooh, baby. Grandma. Only thing about my grandma, she could cook her ass off, but she only left the recipes of our sister, Marianne. I miss my sister very much. She died. And I miss her, but see, my grandma, she wouldn't give everybody the recipes. Or I'd have me a restaurant today. And but it's so funny. It's so funny, but they always want to teach you that the red man was the 5 civilized tribes. But hey, think about this: is that name one restaurant that a Mongoloid Indian has. He has no restaurants because he was a damn nomad. He was a hunter-gatherer. We the ones who did the cooking in our houses. Yes. See, don't be ashamed. Because foundational Black Americans are badass. We're badass. See? But why? Now you think about this. Why do you see people from the Caribbean flee instead of fighting for their rights? Why do you see people from Africa flee their African countries? You see, instead of fighting for their rights. These people love and they have direct African ancestry. But look at the foundational Black American. The foundational Black American, we stay and we fight. Foundational Black American, we can know the odds are always against us. And we can know in the sense that 9 out of 10 times we're going to lose, but we still fight. We fight. And that comes from our Aboriginal heritage. Give me a tomahawk, baby. We fight because of our heritage as Aboriginal people. We fight because we know that this is our land. We fight. We fight because we know that we don't have to run back to Africa. We can stay right here because this is our land. See, the days of the European trying to make us believe that our land is somewhere over there or somewhere over there or somewhere there. That's a damn lie. And I'm sorry to tell you this, brothers. I'm sorry to tell you this. A lot of my ancestors wasn't on the same boat that took your ass down to Jamaica. I'm not trying to be divisive. A lot of my ancestors wasn't on the same boat that took you to Bermuda because a lot of my ancestors were already here. We're the Aboriginal people. We're the foundational people who built America. I'm sorry, but I'm B1. I love Black people everywhere and anywhere because I'm Black first. And you should be Black first too. Stop being ashamed of our history. Stop being ashamed of who and what we are. We're very great people. Okay, I don't see any other comments. So I enjoyed you guys. I'm going to have another, I'll probably have another, live. I don't know what I got a pretty good idea, but I'll wait and I'll tell you. But thanks a lot for coming. Thanks a lot for staying. Thanks a lot for showing. And I love you all. And stay Black. Be one, baby. Be one.